Hello, I'm Greg. Welcome to my channel, Midnight Oil Software. And I'm joined today with Andrew, who is a Unity game dev and a YouTuber. And we're going to talk today about game development and doing content creation for YouTube. Andrew, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for people that aren't familiar with you and your channel?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I'm Andrew. I run the channel Andrzej Gieralt Creative. I don't want to force people to say my name in Polish, but I made the game Heir on Steam a little while ago, and I'm now working on another game. And I like to encourage people to make games, and I do my best to do that with my videos.
Cool. So you have how many videos on your channel right now?
That is a great question. Let me check. It's not too much. Um, I remember hearing Mr. Beast once say that you need like 100 videos before you can call yourself a YouTuber, but I do not have 100 videos. Yeah, like just a ballpark, maybe 50.
Okay. So how long have you been doing that?
I started this channel in, let me go to the beginning here. That's a good question. Um, I want to say 2020 with this one. My first video was no, my first video was uploaded in 2019, December, not too long before the virus happened.
Okay. So what inspired you to get into game development and start a YouTube channel?
Well, I have wanted to do game development for quite a while. I've started like in elementary school, just messing around with various game engines, just making like unfinished prototypes of different kinds. Um, Same thing with YouTube. I had like a really old channel that I just did nonsense, and I even tried to do some game development tutorials back then, like I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago or something like that. They were really bad. So with this channel, I just like really wanted to start taking things seriously. I watched a Lost Relic video. He has a great YouTube channel, and he just gave like an overview of how many wish lists he gets, even though he doesn't have like 400,000 subscribers. He had at the time 50,000 when I watched that video, and I was like, oh wow, you don't actually like 50,000. That seems doable. I think I maybe could do that. Whereas I was looking at like Jonas High Roller and Danny, who had like hundreds and thousands or millions, and that's unimaginable, right? So Lost Relic, I figured like, well, this is actually reasonable. Maybe this is possible. And then I started doing research. I found Film Booth. My videos got a lot better after that, and things started working out a little bit. So yeah,
Cool. So how many subscribers you have now?
right now about 12,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm
not quite
about
there.
7,500, I think, on my
Okay.
channel.
Hmm.
So, speaking of big YouTubers, Bracky's back. So I think
Yeah,
he's got over 1 million subscribers.
yeah, it's got to be. It's quite a lot.
Yeah, cool. Of course, he's doing Godot tutorials, so
Yeah, awesome.
not sure if that really counts that he's back. But no, I actually watched his Godot tutorial. It was really, really well done.
Hmm.
He crams a lot of content in a very reasonable amount of time, and it's very clear and concise, easy to follow. So I know if people are getting into Go, they're going to really enjoy his tutorials because he's top notch, high production quality.
Oh, for sure. I've used a lot of his tutorial. I've constantly like been tabbing back and forth between my game and his video and things like that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yep. So how would you describe the main focus or theme of your channel's content? Is it mostly tutorials, or is it devlogs, or is it just you know advice for game devs, or what would you say?
Yeah. Um, I don't know if you've seen Jonas Tyroller's video on game dev for YouTubers, and in that he kind of talked about how there's tutorials, there's devlogs, and then there's like this third mystical category that not a lot of people do, of like it's just yeah, game dev advice, which is what I focused on, and precisely actually because of that comment of his that it's kind of like a gap on YouTube that not a lot of people are doing. and it's really hard to hit that to like figure out what people are looking for with those kinds of videos. But it's the ones that I enjoy doing. I don't really like doing tutorials, and I'm starting to try to get into devlogs now that I have a new game on the way. But yeah, I've kind of niched into this like advice channel, which I sometimes get a little bit criticized for fairly because what am I supposed to tell people? My game made $500 on Steam, so but then again, what I kind of focus on too is like telling people, here's how you finish your game. Here's how you make the most of that early stage, right? Because I made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, like Arab Scare had a bad launch, and like I can talk about that. I have like 3 videos talking about why my game isn't gonna work before I launched it. And then yeah, like this kind of transition between I'm just messing around in the engine to maybe there is something to it is kind of like what I'm trying to get
Hmm.
people into.
Yeah, in your most recent video, you talk about like a major change of direction for your game, right? You want to talk a
Yeah,
little bit about that? I know you do cover it in your video, but
sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I tried to kind of initially make this. I tried to make. I started trying to make a game like this like last year, basically, which was going to be a stealth game about the Pope. That was I thought that was a great idea, but people didn't really it didn't resonate too well. Um, and so I thought, okay, well, I always wanted to make a Robin Hood game, and it's public domain, so why not just do it? Um, and it was going to be a stealth game because Arab Obscure was originally going to be a stealth game, and I did a ton of research about like Thief and Dishonored back then, and I find that game fascinating. But then as I was working on it, I remembered making Air Obscure and really hating making the map. It was like this giant interior of like I had to copy paste so many walls and it was horrible. And I thought like at the same time I was doing some tabletop RPG. I'm kind of transitioning from D&D to Adventure Conqueror King,
hmm.
which is a really cool system. And he has this whole thing of like world building and how to set up a world for a sandbox campaign. And I found that so fascinating. Um, and then I realized that like the intersection of those two things is like I really like simulating worlds, and I really like researching the history of Robin Hood and making maps and thinking of factions. And I realized, like, okay, well, I have to make an open world RPG, which is what everyone tells you, myself included, don't do it. Why would you do it? It's stupid. But it's tons of fun. And I
Yeah.
think I have a pretty good idea of how to go about it.
Well, yeah, I hope that works out well for you. I saw your video. It did look really interesting and fun.
Thanks.
So, how do you stay motivated and maintain consistency in uploading content? Because I know for me, so I don't know about you, my game dev and YouTubing is totally a side gig. I'm a full time software engineer. I think you mentioned you are as well. And so I'm also married, and I have other family commitments. I've got children and grandchildren and church involvement and stuff like that. So I don't have a whole lot of time to invest in game dev, and then YouTube is kind of even secondary to that. So how do you carve out the time and stay motivated to keep cranking out content?
Yeah. Um, I guess for starters, my before this video, my last video was uploaded like 3 months ago, so it's kind of arguable whether my consistency is particularly good or not. But yeah, I was kind of thinking about this the other day, kind of like getting ready for talking about it because it's kind of like I guess sometimes there is no motivation, right? Like it also ties very much into the purpose of the video and the topic of the video and the idea for the greater kind of creativity of the video itself because when I did YouTube before when I was getting ready to make Arab Obscure, I was doing devlogs as a stealth game and I absolutely hated it. And my devlogs kept getting worse and worse and worse and shorter and shorter. And then like eventually I was like, I'm not even gonna record my face. I'm just gonna like edit all the B-roll and that's it. And they ended up like 3 minutes, and then like no one's gonna watch them anyway, and I just stopped doing them. And then after doing like after watching Film Booth, I learned a little bit more about making videos, and I realized that like I suddenly had a passion for them again. And every time I make a video, I can kind of, I start out kind of like hating the video, and I really try to find like a reason to make the video, if that makes sense. So like, um, for example, for one video I have out right now that's doing quite well is how I would learn game dev if I could start over. It's kind of a copy of uh there's like a video that got like 1 million views of like how I would do software development if I could start over. So I copied the thumbnail of that. Um, and I wrote the video while I was on a trip to Alberta to the mountains with my family. And I was like, how am I going to make this video interesting? This is such a boring video. Like, I'm just talking about what I would do. I've said all this stuff before over and over again. And all of a sudden, I was like, aha, what if I make it like a roadmap? Like the entire time, I'm just like going on a journey. I have a literal map with me I can point to. And like just that little thing made this through line for the video. And it just made it really fun for me to make. And it turned out really well. And so it's kind of that combination of like, of that, like the creativity of the video itself, the actual need to make the video. So do I need to grow my email list or do I need to get wish lists? I really need to get wish lists because I really want to make games. So I need to make this video. Um, so there's the how much I want to make the video and how much do I need this video to do really well. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. So you said you wrote the video on a trip. So do you
Yeah.
script, generally you script your videos
Always, yep, every time.
and you have a teleprompter or?
Uh, yes, yeah. I temporarily didn't use one, but yeah. It's so helpful to have one. I
Is it,
couldn't possibly make videos just off the cuff. I really need to like redraft and stay focused and have it there to just like have the confidence, I guess.
yeah. So is there a particular one you recommend or?
The one I think the one that I use is called like DesView or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that there's like an iPhone thing you can use. But I saw one a couple of months ago that it just attaches to your camera and you can hook any kind of, you can basically use it as an extra monitor for your computer and you can pretty much send anything to it,
Okay. Huh.
which looked interesting. You could even
Yeah.
use it for video chat. So what you see
Okay.
in front of you is the screen, the people you're talking to. So you get good eye contact.
Interesting. Okay, neat.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't use one. I tend to just try and wing it, which makes me take multiple takes because I'll stumble over words and stuff. But yeah, so are there any particular challenges that you face as a YouTube content creator and how do you overcome them? We mentioned motivation. Is there anything else that?
Time is a big thing, because I couldn't possibly imagine how it would be like with also having a family, um, like a wife and children, things like that. Because I already feel kind of constricted for time, um, and I need to remind myself how much time I actually truly have. Um, but yeah, like it is a challenge because you're kind of juggling these things and then like side projects and stuff and you it turns out that you actually have to have fun too.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
they say.
yeah. So you mentioned you got into some tabletop gaming, and you're transitioning from D&D to what was it?
Adventure Conqueror King system.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Did you ever do any virtual tabletop stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, most of my like I moved to Saskatchewan recently. Most of my friends are in Ontario, so we just do yeah, we just call for sessions.
You use any particular virtual tabletop like Roll20 or
Uh,
Foundry or
yeah, we usually use Foundry if anything, or just kind of either Foundry or just nothing, to be
just
honest.
Theater of the Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was using Roll20. I run a D&D campaign for my son and my grandson, and I was using Roll20, and had some frustrations in a recent session and actually vented about it on Jason Story's Discord. He has a rant channel on his server. And somebody said, oh, you ought to use Foundry. And, I'd heard of it. And I looked into it and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a game changer. So I've migrated my entire campaign over to Foundry, and we've installed a ton of mods, and we're automating pretty much everything. And
Oh, that's awesome.
it's sweet. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really, really
especially
nice.
Foundry and Dungeon Alchemist combined.
Yep. You make the 3D maps with Dungeon Alchemist and port them right in.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
getting started with Dungeon Alchemist. It's really cool. I haven't quite figured out the whole everything you can do with it, but
Yeah.
it's neat.
I backed their Kickstarter, so I got it when it first launched for a really
Nice.
good deal. Yeah. So, what do you enjoy most about being part of the YouTube community?
That's a tough question for me because I'm not sure what the YouTube community is, to be honest. I don't really talk to too many YouTubers, I guess, too regularly. Like I'm in a few Discords. Um, I have had a great privilege to do some work for Thomas Brush. I edited two videos for
Oh,
excuse me, two
wow.
videos for him. Um, and so he's given me like a lot of tips. Actually, I think I pretty much like learned how to edit from doing one video for him. Um, but yeah, otherwise I don't know if I I'm not too involved in too many conversations, I guess.
Okay. So, does your audience in any way drive your content? Like, do you get requests from your audience for the types of videos they want to see?
Not too often. I've tried to keep an eye out for like what's the most voted for comment on a video and things like that, but they don't usually um like a good idea is to look for comments like that that are highly voted that are like my biggest struggle is this, and it has like a million upvotes or whatever, but I don't tend to see that on my videos for some
Mm,
reason. Um, and the one thing is that like people wanted me to make like a technical video about like just how to make a game, which would technically be like a tutorial, which I don't really like doing. And I tried to do some coding videos and no one really watched them. And so I figured, you know what, maybe I'm not going to worry too much about comments. I'm just going to do research. I'm going to look for what does well and try to package the ideas that I want to come across in conjunction with my research, basically, if
okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I do mostly tutorials. So I do get requests, can you make a tutorial on how to do this? And I've also done some series where I show how to make a complete game, like an arcade game from scratch, like Defender or Joust or, one of those. And what's funny is I'll move on to a new series, and people are requesting me to continue stuff on the old series. Like, can you add this? Can you add that? And so, like you said, there's just not enough time to do all the things. And then, especially if you're making your own game, like I just submitted a math game for Legends of Learning.
Hmm.
And so that was really taking up a lot of my time. I haven't been putting out videos really probably for over a month because I've been really heads down working on that with all my game dev time. I am doing a couple of videos about that specifically for people that might be interested. In fact, Legends of Learning saw one of my videos and asked if they could link to it from their site, from their tutorials page. So it's at the top of their tutorial page, which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
They said they were thinking of actually hiring somebody to make that kind of video, but since I did it, could they go ahead and link to it? And I'm like, sure. So, but yeah, it's interesting to see the kind of comments that I get and requests that I get and things I could never see myself doing, like reaching out to a YouTuber and asking them to make a specific tutorial for me. But, I'm kind of flattered that they, feel that I'm capable of doing that for them. Have you ever collaborated with any other developers? Well, you mentioned Thomas Brush. You edited some of his stuff. You ever just done any collaboration with other creators to put together stuff?
Yeah, so I've had he showed up in one of my videos too, actually. And I also got Chris Sukowski to show up in one of my videos.
How to market a game.
Yeah, yeah. So they're both in what's that video called? It's called uh Where is it? Four mistakes stopping you from finishing your game. And I start the video very like this is like a YouTube video intro, and then suddenly like I cut to myself editing it, and then Thomas Brush shows up as like a
I
ghost.
remember that. I
Yeah,
remember that.
that was
Yeah,
so much fun. That's like my favorite video I've ever made. It doesn't have a whole lot of views. It does okay, but yeah. So there, it's like the ghosts of Christmas past and stuff like that. It was fun.
that's cool. Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
good video.
thanks.
So you mentioned you learned a lot from Thomas Brush about editing. What software do you use to edit your videos?
Yeah, I use DaVinci Resolve. Yeah,
Yep.
it's really good. I used to use Shotcut. DaVinci Resolve is like a million times better. It's just so smooth
Yeah,
and
it's
very.
hard to believe that it's free.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
crazy.
they make most of their money off hardware, and so they can just give that
Okay.
software away. And it's so feature rich. And I've used a bunch of other. I use Final Cut Pro on a Mac, but I can't imagine anything I need to do that I can't do with DaVinci.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's great. And the color grading obviously is very highly well known as very good, and yeah, it makes it a lot easier to do color grading.
Yeah. Yep. So powerful, so feature rich. What would you say are some of the most significant milestones or achievements that you've reached with either your games or your channel?
That's a good question. I guess probably releasing Air Obscure is probably a big one. That was the first one that just I kind of like knew, okay, this game isn't gonna do well, and so it became like a Kickstarter for my channel. I just felt like, okay, I'll just milk it for content in that case. And then, and obviously just having like a great feeling of like I finished a game. I did something that like so many developers try to do and never do. And even though the game failed, I learned a lot. Like that's great. That's like a big thing that like David Whaley talks about, right? His first game was like okay, it was early on in Steam, but it didn't do too well. And yet his next game was a huge success. And so I think I thought about that quite a bit at that time. And another big milestone was making my Danny video, which I had 400 subscribers, and that video got like 200,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just like I happened to do the right kind of research and figure out what was doing well, and that video took off. Um, and that got me monetized. So that made me think like, okay, I can actually do YouTube. This is actually something that has like a science to it, not just a roll of the dice.
So you said you did research to see what was working. So
Yeah.
would you say most of your content is targeted where you're targeting specific things that you know will do well?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's very important because you can always say what you want to say in the context of something else. Um, like for example, even like I don't know if you came across like my video that has like brackies on the thumbnail. That one had some controversy.
Oh, really?
But there's that video, and then there's like that one I mentioned, like how I would learn game dev if I could start over. Those are like the exact same video, just with like a different title, and it has a completely different reaction. And so um, there's not a whole lot that I want to say, and so I just think of like new creative ways to say them, basically. Um, and yeah, like one of the things that I like to do is if I notice some video has a lot of views, but the channel has very low subscribers, that is like a huge indication that like, okay, this video is like this topic is an automatic view generator, basically. So those are very powerful.
So I can't remember. Did you put out any videos about the whole Unity pricing controversy? It's okay because
Yeah, yeah, I did, and I kind of regret it. That wasn't my best work.
well, so the only I barely touched on that at all, and I wanted to really actually it was Jason Story's idea. I wanted to just sort of play off of the whole thing, and so I made a video basically saying how to quit Unity,
Hmm.
right? Or no, it was just called Quitting Unity. And the whole video was just how you can use application.quit, or
Oh,
if you're in the editor, you can, and I got some good feedback from that. People enjoyed that because it was obviously clickbait, and just trying to play into the hype, and everybody's, jumping ship and saying Unity betrayed us. And at the time I kind of resented the fact that a lot of big time Unity YouTube creators were doing that, because I kind of felt like they were almost turning their back on their audience that built their channel, who came there for Unity content. And yeah, there's good reason to be upset with Unity, but then I kind of felt like, well, what about your audience that still wants that content? But in hindsight, I can really see how the whole game dev community coming together to protest what Unity did got them to reverse course. And
yeah.
so I can definitely see the value in that. But,
Yeah. Like for myself, I pretty much figured like, I'll actually like try to get on this like hype train a little bit. But it was like I think that's like pretty brilliant, like what you did, especially because you're a tutorial channel, which means like, aha, let's do this little trend. But now I'll show you how good my tutorials are, basically, which is actually quite a fun way of doing that. I like that. For me, I was just like, here's like some poorly researched thing that I found like last night. I made this thumbnail like in an hour and I uploaded the video tomorrow, right? It was really bad, and I immediately got like torn apart in the comments,
oh
like,
no.
what are you talking about? That's not what they did. This is wrong. That's like how Unreal does it. What do you mean? And I'm like, okay,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you're right. And I took down those videos because it was just like, I don't know what I'm talking about. It was kind of like, it was like dumb, to be honest. But yeah, kind of.
Well, at least you had the presence of mind to realize, oh shoot, I should have researched this a little bit more before I put this out there.
Yeah.
Cool. So how do you make your thumbnails?
I use GIMP. It's like a free Photoshop, and it's great. It does everything Photoshop can do. And I just kind of, I'm not too good at thumbnails. Still trying to figure that out for like devlogs. And well, actually for all kinds of videos. So I just cheat and I just use people like Danny and Brackies and I put them on the thumbnail.
You use other people's images to drive content to your channel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's very recommended by like Film Booth too, and you see it all over the place. Like Charisma on Command is a perfect example of channels that do that a lot.
Oh, you watch that channel too, huh?
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
sometimes I used to a little bit more, but yeah, like at this point, it's kind of like you kind of know what they're gonna say because they're doing the same. They're playing the YouTube game. They're doing what we're all trying to do. So yeah, like some people say like, oh, that's not a really good thing to do, but I don't really understand that because for now it seems like a very common thing on YouTube, and it doesn't seem like people really have an issue with it. So I don't know if we're gonna learn more about that, if there's like ever gonna be some kind of legal issue around it or something.
Yeah,
But
I wonder.
yeah, for now it seems normal.
So do you use any AI or anything like for your thumbnail images or anything?
No, not for thumbnails. No, or for script writing, just because I think like for writing, like even GPT-4, it's so bad. It's completely like it's so obvious, and it's really bad at writing YouTube scripts. It doesn't understand how a YouTube script is supposed to be structured. And for images, I mean, I've never really needed to, I guess. I suppose like potentially I wouldn't rule out using it in the future, but I haven't really needed to, and I guess I like trying to make my own anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I like to use it for background images for my thumbnail.
That makes sense.
I usually use Midjourney for that. And another AI tool that Jason Story, I found out from him, is called Memex, I think. Memex. I don't know how you pronounce it. Memex. But you can use it to summarize a YouTube video. Like you can just, it adds a plugin to your browser, and I can just say, summarize this video and give me timestamps. And it will tell me all the main points that were covered. Like when this video gets posted to YouTube, I could run it on my video and it will give us everything we talked about with timestamps.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, sometimes I'll watch other people's videos and I'll do that and then I'll paste it as a comment into their video. So if they didn't put chapter markers in, just so other people coming after me can say, oh, wow, I've got chapter markers here. So So what got you into game dev in the first place? How'd you get into game development?
Oh, this goes back.
I bet it
I
doesn't go
first
back as far as me, but go ahead.
fair, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I first tried making games in elementary school, which I guess wasn't when would that have been? I don't know. I'm not gonna try to off the cuff guess a number, but probably like more than 10 years ago at this point. And like I was like, I'm gonna make an MMORPG. And there was actually the first ever game development that I ever did was trying to make an MMORPG using this like MMORPG engine that existed. I forget what it was called. I kept trying to find it since then. I never remembered what it was called. I had it on like a really old laptop. Um, and I started learning code from that. Um, and I spent like I don't know, like a few months trying to do that and like never making any progress. Then I did Blender Game Engine, and I actually made a pretty good first-person shooter prototype. I could like aim down sights and reload um, and do a few different things. I never figured out how to do enemies in that game. Um, and then like I engine hopped. I tried different things. I tried like making like an engine in like OpenGL and things like that. And then eventually settled on Unity. Tried to make an RPG. That became too big. I didn't know what I was doing. I did some game jams, made small games, made Air Obscure. Now we're here.
So are you totally self-taught or did you go to school for programming?
Yeah, I did go to school for computer science, but I started already learning programming a bit on my own in elementary school.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty much self-taught. I taught myself to program by writing games on my dad's Commodore 64. So in
nice,
BASIC.
awesome.
Um, and then over the course of my career, I've been fortunate enough to always have jobs where I could learn on the job.
Hmm.
And I like to joke and tell people I go to HKU, which is Hard Knocks University, and I'm still working on my PhD from HKU. But yeah, over the course of my career, I've worked in Pascal, C, C++, Java, C Sharp, and now front end development. I use Angular or TypeScript, React, a lot SQL Server on the back end, Web API, all that stuff. So I'm a full stack developer in my day job. But over all of that time in my career, I'd always dabble in game development. There was a card game that I always wanted to make. It's like solitaire, but it's multiplayer. It's called Dutch Blitz. And I actually was in communication with the Dutch Blitz game company to make this game for them. And we had a couple of false starts where I would make a prototype, they'd get excited, and then they would kind of get cold feet and it would
Mm,
peter out. So finally, I decided to just rebrand it and make my own version of it called Highland Panic. So it's the same game, it's just with a Scottish Highland theme instead of a
nice.
Pennsylvania Dutch theme. So I released that last year. It's available on Steam, the Apple App Store, and Google Play. It's cross-platform multiplayer.
That's awesome.
It's not selling at all, but but I felt good about, like you said, it just feels good to release a game and put it out there and publish something. And I have a couple other mobile games that I published for Apple and Google. One of them was based on hand-drawn art. So my wife and I were taking drawing lessons during the pandemic virtually from a guy named Mark Kistler. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he had shows on PBS called The Imagination Station and The Secret City, and he teaches you to draw. So there's a documentary out about him now. It's called Mark Kistler's Secret Cities or something like that.
Hmm.
But anyway, he teaches you to draw these cute little, cartoony characters. And I thought, well, I'm learning game development because I started taking a Harvard Intro to Game Development course at the beginning of the pandemic, which was my first time actually working in Unity. And I thought, well, let me make a game using hand-drawn art as sort of a tribute to Mark Kistler. And one of the characters he taught us to draw is called a ninja egg. So I made a game called Ninja Eggs, and it's free. It's on the Apple App Store and Google Play. It's basically Angry Birds,
Okay.
but just with
Yeah.
the hand-drawn art. And then I made a remake of, I don't know if you ever remember Star Castle, the arcade game.
I don't think so.
So I made a remake of that and called it Cosmic Space Fortress. So it's a mobile game. That one I actually charged for, but it's not selling either. But anyway, it feels good to have a few published games out there in my portfolio.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
So, what advice would you give to aspiring game devs or content creators that want to get into this field?
For game developers, I would say that the most important thing is to make small games first before making their dream game. And everybody says this, but the thing is, nobody ever listens to it. Me, as the one who tried to make his dream game before making small games and didn't listen to anyone either.
Was that Arab Scare?
Uh, Arab Scare was already after I started
Oh,
making small
okay.
games. Yeah. Um, um, that yeah, I guess Arab Scare was generally a small game too.
But
But
what was your dream game?
well, I tried to make like a big RPG, which was what I started my channel with in like December 2019. Um, my devlogs were horrible. My game was horrible. It was overscoped and you know the whole
Hmm.
9 yards and all that. Um, and yeah, and like I noticed that like from time to time people will kind of argue with me in comments or Discord or something and just be like, yeah, I know I should make a small game, but I'm just gonna make my dream game anyway. And it's like, what what could possibly what could 1 month of making small games do to your dream game, right? It's not gonna stop it. It's not gonna. It's only gonna make it better. So that's what I kind of try
Right.
to encourage people towards. Um, and yeah, and just to not worry about like, oh, I don't know programming. Like, just you can learn programming as you go. Like, you have more things to worry about than programming.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Do you watch Sasquatch B Studio, Brandon and Nikki?
Oh, it's familiar. I for sure have seen one of their videos,
Yeah,
but
they're
I
in
don't.
Canada too. They're a husband and wife team. He quit his job, sold his house, and they've been living off the proceeds of that to do game development and YouTubing full time.
Wow, wow.
But I mean, I really enjoy his channel. He just put out a video today about myths of game development, and one of them was don't start with your dream game.
Yes.
And what he said was he pushes back on that because he said the people that are saying that already know why you shouldn't start with your dream game. So he thinks go ahead and start with your dream game so you can learn why you shouldn't start with your dream game and then go and start working on all the little games to learn all the things you need to do to make your dream
Yeah,
game.
that's fair too. And I guess on the flip side of that too is like ultimately you should make your dream game in the end, or perhaps in the beginning and then fail to and all that. Um, I I guess my worry with that is like if you actually do that, I mean, like you could do that forever, you know, you could really,
And never finish
uh,
anything.
yeah, and like actually what I spent like, you know, whatever, like 10 years or something doing was trying to make my dream game like 5 different times, and I could have just been making small games in that time, like Two Star, the guy who made Choo Choo Charles. He spent his like high school or whatever making small games, and then he made this ridiculous meme game. Um, but then the sort of I think things are changing in game development a little bit, in like indie game development, and not some kind of big like marketing change or anything like that, but you have this like change in how people recommend doing wish lists, in terms of like they would say like build them up over time, but now they're saying do them all at once, all at the very end after all. And at the same time, people are kind of saying don't make your dream game, but actually yes, make your dream game. And um what I'm sort of trying to tie this into is like uh before I tried to make the Robin Hood game and the Pope game, I tried to make I briefly tried to make a city builder, because you know everyone says a city builder is like the perfect genre to make because it's um what is it, high demand and low supply on Steam, and Steam shoppers love that kind of stuff. And it was like, okay, well, I figured out marketing. It's gonna be great. But then it's like I actually kind of have no idea what a city builder is all about. And that was also kind of my problem for Arab Scare. Like I was advised, like reduce the scope, don't make a stealth game, don't make an immersive sim. It's stupid. Um, but I ended up making like a pretty bad horror game that, I understood immersive sim and stealth game, and it would have taken me a long time, but that was kind of like where my passion was, and it probably would have made the game qualitatively better if, however, I would have not had that kind of advantage of like, aha, yes, I can make a game, I can finish and release a game, which was, I think, a big asset. But like, yeah, I like when it comes down to things, I think the passion for the genre is very important.
Yeah. Those are all good points. So, how would you see the future of your channel evolving in the coming years?
I guess I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, but better.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of like I kind of said, I'm trying to focus more on devlogs now, so I have a lot to learn about making devlogs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do not understand devlogs at all. Some people will make like random devlog with like a really bad looking game and it makes a lot of views. And then people will make like a beautiful devlog for a beautiful game and it doesn't get any views. Um, and So there's a lot that I want to learn about that. And just because like if my focus now is this game, then like I have to kind of orient my channel towards that a little bit. So
Yeah,
we'll
because
see how that goes.
you want to generate excitement for the game.
Yes.
Yeah, I tried doing devlogs. I tried doing it for my Highland Panic game, and it's just I don't know. I can't keep up the momentum with the devlog. I feel like if I'm doing a devlog, I'm not writing the game. And if I'm writing the
Yeah,
game, I don't really have time to do a devlog. And I don't want to be recording myself writing the game because I do a lot of trial and error and stuff too. And it just, I would have to do so much editing. It seems like it would
for sure.
be really
Yeah.
counterproductive. I do enjoy watching devlogs though. There's a channel called Just Make Game. It's a couple in Australia. And I haven't watched them in a while, but they they did a complete devlog for their first game that they released, made enough money off that launch to work full time on a second game, and I probably watched 40 or 50 videos in the second series for the second game. And the first game he did his own like stop motion graphics for everything. He photographed himself in all the poses and then drew over all the pictures, all the animations. And we're talking like pixel art, right?
Wow.
And he got his wife involved in doing animations and stuff for the second game, and he does his own. He does everything. He does use an engine, but it's not one that I'm familiar with. But he does a lot of stuff himself from scratch. He writes his own shaders and stuff, and but they're entertaining. If you look them up, I think you might like some of their videos.
Yeah, yeah. They'll
They
be
do.
useful research too.
Yeah, they do like LARPing and live action role play and stuff. And they also record their own music for their games. He has some musician buddies that come over and they play a variety of instruments and they make their own soundtrack for the games.
That's very cool. It's crazy how like I think I sometimes wonder like what's more important, art or programming? And all these so many like so many developers are so caught up on programming, but art I think is so much harder and music and like like I feel like if someone's good at art but bad at programming, they have a much better chance.
Yeah, yeah, because there's a lot of tools to help you get over the programming hurdles.
Yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
it's harder to quantify what makes something artistic and
Mhm.
creative and things like that. And like people like that. So what was the channel name that you mentioned?
Just make game.
Just Make Game. Okay. So if they're doing everything, like the animation like that, that's very dedicated,
Yep.
and the music, and that kind of slightly reminds me of like David Whaley, like him having like a uh, video background or something like that, and like he really knew color very well,
Hmm.
and that really carried his game. Um, yeah, like that's very impressive, I think, and like just being like the granularity of that, and I guess it sounds like they're very technical too. At the same time, if they're kind of like writing their own shaders and things like that,
Hmm.
like that's so impressive. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I'm a musician, but I'm not a composer. So
Hmm.
you can't see it, but behind me there's a wall of guitars.
Nice.
And I play piano. Piano is my main instrument, but I
Okay.
don't compose music. I can play Beethoven and Bach and Chopin and stuff like that, but I'm not going to make video game music. So I rely heavily on assets. I've got there's game music treasury bundles and stuff, and so yeah, I pretty much have to rely on assets for the art, for the music. So I'm very much a programmer and a bit of a designer, but definitely not. I mean, I do a little bit of drawing. I have a graphics an XP Pen Artist Pro drawing tablet, and I played around with Blender. But if it's for my game, I'm going to get an asset and use it. I just
Yeah, for sure.
not confident in my ability to do that, except for my hand drawn art game, which the whole point was cheesy hand drawn art.
But that's a actually like a really good point too, because I think a very important thing is to, well, I don't know, I guess it's debatable how important it is, but if you can either pull assets and arrange them well and make them your own and things like that, or if you can figure out an art style that you just happen to be good at and can make very easily, then that's also kind of like a nice middle ground, or I don't know, like a sweet spot, I guess.
Hmm.
That's I think I kind of figure that out with like my kind of like cell shaded thing. Like Air Obscure was kind of cell shaded. Um, and Robin Hood is going to be cell shaded. And for whatever reason, that's just easy for me to make. And of course, I'm using assets, but then I can take the assets, and even though I'm using a lot of different things and from different sources, the cell shading makes them consistent, and that's very important too. So yeah,
So, can you explain what cell shading is?
yeah, sure. It's like two-tone shade or like three-tone shading or something like that. There's no gradient between the shadow. It's like cartoony, basically, like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Um, the characters, not the backgrounds, um, is cell shaded, and it's hard for me to name any other games offhand. I mean, I guess like Wind Waker, another Zelda game.
So, your materials are basically just a few colors.
Um, yeah, well, many of my materials are just one color, even.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like to do cell shading with like normal maps, so that you have like it's cartoony, but then like also
It's
textured.
got texture. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You should do a tutorial on that, even though I know you don't like tutorials, but at least just show the
mm,
process. So,
yeah,
yeah.
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 I could call it like how to make a visually striking game or something like that.
Yeah. So, Thomas Brush has a few videos like that where he'll show
Yeah,
you how to just a few minutes in Photoshop and you can make a really cool 2D background. And yeah.
those videos are so incredibly
Yeah.
useful, especially he like remade the graphics of like his viewers games, and
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
just the idea of like a color scheme like it's like such a small thing that can change so much about a game. It's crazy. Like color is huge. Color is so like that's the thing. If someone asked me like should I learn programming or should I learn color, I would say learn color.
Hmm. Yeah, that's something I'm not real strong in. And I'm sure if somebody was to take a critical eye to my games, they'd have a lot to say about
Yeah,
my.
I
Yeah,
I don't think I'm any good at it either, to be
yeah,
honest. I'm trying because it seems important, but it's
yeah,
hard.
yeah. So you mentioned earlier your Robin Hood game was originally going to be a stealth game involving the Pope.
Yes, yeah,
So
yeah.
I know from your crucifix and your sacred medal that you're a Catholic, right? So
Yes.
were you a cradle Catholic or did you convert to Catholicism? Or
Yeah. My whole family is Catholic. Grew up Catholic. Um, yeah. Kind of blessed to have had that. But yeah, very much kind of a process of slowly understanding more about the faith over time. And like to what extent it you know it should affect what I do and how I do things, which is the extent is 100%, which is easier said than done, of
yeah,
course. But yeah.
for sure. Yeah, so I just entered the Catholic Church at the Easter Vigil this year. So I was born and raised Baptist and then spent 30 some odd years in a non denominational evangelical Protestant church. And then the last 15 years or so in a Presbyterian church, very reformed, Calvinist
Hmm.
theology. My wife was born and raised Catholic, but converted to Protestant when she was 18 when we were dating, but returned to the Catholic Church 5 years ago. So that, as you might imagine, led to a lot of discussions about theology and stuff. And I'll have to admit, I was pretty anti Catholic while in a Reformed faith. And but we watched a lot of content from Catholic apologists like the Council of Trent Horn, Pints with Aquinas, Reason and Theology, Godsplaining. I could go on and on and on. The Coming Home Network, The Journey Home. Heard a lot of testimonies of former Protestants that became Catholic. And eventually the Protestant arguments I'd always made became less and less convincing to me. And I finally got to the point that I thought I can join my wife, because I thought we should be worshiping together, and I was going to Mass with her. But I thought I can join my wife and not feel like I'm committing heresy. And now I've fully embraced the faith, and we try to go to daily Mass most days. And
That's wonderful.
it's a great way to start the day. It really helps get you centered and focused, and start the day off great. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
I wish I could go to daily mass. That'd be great. I could use that.
yeah. Well,
That's
Andrew,
really great. Like you told me kind of the summary of that in your email. It's so nice to hear, honestly. Like the I don't necessarily want to uh imply that I might know anything about such things, but like I can only imagine how huge of a change that would be, like from this very long time in one community to making like a transition like that, right? And like people who you had once agreed with them that you now disagree with, and things like that. So
mhm,
um it's actually like very inspiring, to be
yeah.
honest. So,
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a lot of discussions with the elders at my Presbyterian church. They, of course, were trying to strongly dissuade me from becoming Catholic. I won't tell you everything they said, but they still, they're sorry to see me go. But I have to say, I mean, my friendships with them are still good, solid friendships. They haven't like exercised me from their life or anything. And my
that's good.
family has been really supportive. My kids, they're still decidedly Protestant, but they actually came to my confirmation service at the Easter
Oh,
Vigil,
excellent.
just to support me in that. And my mother-in-law is very, very excited. She's the one that gave me this crucifix for my confirmation. But yeah, fortunately, I have like my best friend, who was actually the best man at our wedding. He lives in Houston now, so I'm in North Carolina. I had posted pictures of the Easter Vigil on Facebook, and he reacted with like a sad face react.
Hmm.
And I just commented and said, I messaged him privately and said, why did you respond to my Easter Vigil post with a sad? And he goes, because it looks to me like you joined the Catholic Church, and I think that's a horrible decision.
Hmm.
So anyway, I mean, there's a few people that, I haven't had a lot of contact with recently that are probably not too happy about this. But everybody that's involved in my life now, my family, my friends, they're all, pretty supportive, and even though some of them would really rather I did not become Catholic, it's not like, they're not talking to me anymore or anything.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Can't really hope for more, I guess, sometimes.
No. So anyway, I really enjoyed chatting with you, and you said I can call you Andrew instead of trying to pronounce the Polish pronunciation. My some of her relatives are from Poland. They migrated over to Pennsylvania, like near Altoona. So we have some Polish in her side of the family. But we also used to be involved in an international friendship program at NC State University, and every year we'd get connected with graduate students with families from other countries. And one year it was a Polish family. And so I learned one Polish word, dziękuję.
Oh,
So dziękuję is thank you.
yes.
So thank you, Andrew, for being on my channel. And I've really enjoyed chatting with you about game dev and YouTubing and even faith. So that's been really, really fun. And good luck on your new game, your Robin Hood game,
Thank
and
you.
on your YouTube channel. And if you ever want to get together and chat again about anything, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to do it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was great. I appreciate it.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.